My stepmother looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're a failure. Your brother would never disappoint us like this." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just blinked. Because the only reason that house still had lights on, the only reason the bank hadn't swallowed it whole, was me. For 3 years, I'd been quietly paying their mortgage like it was my responsibility, like I owed them for existing. Meanwhile, her precious son, my stepbrother, was still living in their basement, sleeping past noon, working part-time, and calling himself an entrepreneur because he once sold 2 things on Facebook Marketplace. And the worst part? They didn't even say thank you anymore. They acted like my sacrifice was automatic, like breathing. So when she called me a failure, I smiled. "You're right," I said softly. And that's when I stopped paying. Without warning, without guilt, and without looking back. My name is Rachel Miller, and for most of my life, I've been the kind of girl people call responsible. Not because I was born with some rare gift for discipline, but because I learned early that being responsible was the only way I could survive in my family. I'm 32 years old, and I work in corporate finance. Not Wall Street glamorous, just steady. Budgets, forecasts, spreadsheets, meetings that should have been emails. I started at the bottom after college, climbed up slowly, and now I'm a lead financial analyst. The kind of job that pays the bills. The kind of job where you don't panic when your car makes a weird sound. The kind of job that should have allowed me to finally start living. But I wasn't living. I was funding. Because while I was building my career, my home life was rotting from the inside. My dad, Frank, wasn't a bad man. That's what made everything worse. He was the quiet guilt type. The dad who sighs instead of arguing, who avoids conflict like it's poison. Ever since my mom passed away when I was a teenager, he clung to peace like a lifeline. Then Dana showed up. Dana became my stepmother when I was 24. She wasn't cruel at first, just calculating. Her smile was always too polished, like she was rehearsing for someone who might walk in and judge her. She brought her son with her, Ethan. Ethan was 20 when they got married. And to this day, he's never truly moved out. He lives in my dad's basement like it's a private apartment. Finished walls, big screen TV, mini fridge, and a gaming chair worth more than my entire living room. Dana calls it temporary. But temporary turns into permanent when someone else is paying the price. Every Sunday dinner at their house felt like the same twisted show. Dana would be in the kitchen calling out sweetly, "Ethan, honey, I made your favorite pot roast." And Ethan would yell from the basement without even coming up, "Awesome. Save me, the best part." Then I'd walk in and Dana would glance at me, just a glance, like I was a coworker she didn't like. "Oh," she'd say, "Rachel, you're here." Like my presence was optional. Like I was a guest. Dad always tried to patch it up. "Come on, Dana," he'd murmur. "She's family." Dana would smile, tight and cold. "Of course she's family. I'm just saying Ethan is the one who's really here for us." And I'd swallow my feelings like I always did, because in my family, love wasn't something you received freely. It was something you earned, and I was exhausted from trying to earn it. It started with a phone call I'll never forget. It was late, almost midnight, when my dad called. His voice sounded smaller, like he was trying to fold himself into the phone, so I wouldn't hear the shame. "Rachel," he said, clearing his throat. "Can you come by tomorrow? Dana and we need to talk." That sentence always meant one thing in my family. Something was broken, and I was expected to fix it. The next day I drove over. Their house looked normal from the outside, same pale blue shutters, same porch light, same tree in the front yard. But inside, the air felt heavy. Dana was sitting at the kitchen table like a judge. Neat blouse, perfect hair, nails painted. In front of her were stacks of paper, arranged like evidence. My dad stood behind her, hands on the back of her chair, eyes avoiding mine.
Donna smiled.
Not warm, not welcoming, just practiced. "Rachel," she said, tapping the papers. "We're in a bit of a bind." I sat down and scanned the documents. Mortgage statement, late fees, a warning letter. My stomach dropped. They still owed close to $200,000 on a house that wasn't even fancy. 3-bedroom ranch, modest neighborhood. The kind of home my dad used to be proud of because it was stable. But stability had been borrowed against twice. I looked at my dad. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't want to worry you." Dana leaned in, voice suddenly emotional. "Your father retired, Rachel. We thought we'd be okay. But everything costs more now. The taxes, the utilities." She let out a dramatic sigh. "We're drowning." I ran the numbers in my head like I always did. Monthly payment with taxes and insurance? Almost $1,850. I clenched my jaw. Then I asked the question that should have ended the conversation right there. "What about Ethan?" The room went silent. Dana's eyes narrowed like I'd insulted her personally. "Ethan is still finding his way," she said sharply. He's not in a position to help. He's 23, I said. My voice was calm, but it shook at the edges. He's working part-time and living here. He could contribute something. Dana's smile snapped back on, thin and cold. Rachel, sweetheart, she said, not everyone is as capable as you. Ethan is sensitive. He needs support. Support. My dad finally stepped forward. Ratch, just for a little while. Until we adjust. Until things stabilize. I should have said no. I should have asked them to sell. Downsize. Get jobs. Make Ethan pay rent. But then Dad looked at me with that old familiar guilt in his eyes. The same look he used when I begged him not to work double shifts after Mom died. And I folded. How much do you need? I asked quietly. Dana's voice softened instantly, like she'd won. If you could send $1,200 a month, it would save us. Save us. I nodded like an idiot. Okay, I whispered. Dad exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. Thank you, honey. Dana reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're such a good daughter, she murmured. But the truth? The moment I agreed, I stopped being a daughter. I became their mortgage plan. The first month after I started sending the money, Dana acted like I'd hung the moon. She texted me a long message, full of emojis and exclamation points. Rachel, thank you so much. You're saving us. We're so proud of you. We'll pay you back. This is temporary. Temporary. That word should have been my warning. Because temporary doesn't mean temporary when the people benefiting from it never feel the cost. Every month on the 1st, I transferred $1,200 like clockwork. At first, Dad would call. You don't know what this means to us, he'd say, voice thick with emotion. Dana would jump in, sweet as honey. You're such a blessing, Rachel. Such a good daughter. But by month 6, the gratitude shrank. The texts became shorter. Got it. Thanks. By the end of year 1, there was nothing. Not a thank you. Not a check-in. Not even a hey, are you okay doing this? The money vanished from my account like rent. Like it was something I owed. And I started noticing things I couldn't unsee. Like how Dana upgraded the living room TV to a bigger screen because Dad's eyesight isn't what it used to be. Or how she suddenly started shopping at nicer grocery stores, buying organic everything, like inflation only existed for me. And Ethan? Ethan's life didn't change at all, except it got more comfortable. Every Sunday dinner was the same routine. Dana would call down the basement stairs. Ethan, Ani, come eat. Ethan would drag himself up late, half awake, and flop into a seat. Smells good, he'd mumble. Dana would beam like he just cured cancer. My hardworking boy, she'd say loudly, always loud enough for me to hear. Hardworking. I watched him scroll on his phone while Dad and I carried dishes to the table. One night I finally asked, carefully, like I was walking on glass. So, Ethan, I said, forcing a light tone, are you still looking for full-time work? He didn't even blink. Yeah. Dana snapped instantly. Rachel. I froze. Her eyes were warning lights. What? I asked. She smiled tight. He's doing his best. Ethan smirked and took a bite of pot roast. I felt my throat tighten. I'm just asking. Dana set down her fork with a little click. He's applying, she said. But the job market is brutal. He's not like you. He doesn't have your numbers brain. My stomach turned. Because it wasn't a compliment. It was a reminder. I was the useful one. The one who earned. The one who paid. The one who didn't get praised unless my wallet was open. I drove home that night and stared at my budget spreadsheet. That $1,200 transfer glared at me like a curse. It was money I could have used for myself. To build my emergency fund. To max out my retirement. To travel. To breathe. But instead, I was eating meal prep chicken and saying no to friends because I'm busy. Busy being their safety net. And the worst part? The longer it went on, the more I realized something terrifying. They weren't struggling anymore. They were just comfortable. Because I made it comfortable. And once people get comfortable living off you, they start resenting you for having boundaries. Around the 2-year mark, something good finally happened to me. I got promoted. Lead analyst. A real title. A real raise. $15,000 more a year. I still remember sitting in my car after the meeting, staring at the dashboard like it wasn't real. I should have been celebrating, calling friends, booking that Colorado trip I'd been postponing for years. Instead, my first thought was, maybe now I can breathe even with the mortgage. That's how deep it had gotten inside me. I told myself I'd keep it quiet. But a few Sundays later, Dad asked about work and I slipped. I got promoted, I said, trying to sound casual. It's a big step. Dad's face lit up. Rachel, seriously? That's amazing. For a second, my chest warmed. Like the old days, when his pride didn't come with a price tag. Then Dana leaned forward, eyes bright. Not proud, interested. Oh wow, she said slowly. So that comes with a raise, right? My stomach tightened. Yeah, I said. A decent one. Dana smiled like she'd won something. That's wonderful, she said. I knew you'd make it. You've always been our ambitious girl. Our. She only used that word when it benefited her. Dinner continued, but Dana kept glancing at me like she was calculating numbers in her head. Like my raise was already in her bank account. After dessert, she poured coffee and did that fake laugh thing. So, she said casually, does this mean you can help us a little more each month? The words hit like ice water. I already send 1,200. Dana blinked, as if I'd disappointed her by remembering. And we appreciate it, she said quickly. But Rachel, everything costs more now. The utilities, the property taxes, inflation is brutal. My dad nodded like he'd been coached. It would really help if you could bump it up to, say, 1,500. 1,500. I felt my fingers go numb around my mug. I looked across the table. Ethan was scrolling on his phone, chewing like a cow. Not listening. Not caring. Because, why would he care? He wasn't the one paying. I swallowed. What about Ethan contributing something? The room instantly changed temperature.
Dana's smile vanished.
That's not fair, she snapped. I blinked. Not fair? He lives here. He's not in the same position you are, Dana said sharply. Stop comparing yourself to him. I'm not comparing myself, I said, voice rising despite my best effort. You're comparing me to him every day, except the comparison always ends with him being rewarded and me being used. Dad's jaw tightened. Rachel, don't talk like that. I turned to him, heart pounding. Talk like what? Like facts. Dana stood up, palms on the table. This is exactly your problem, she said. You make everything about money. I laughed short, bitter. Because you turned my relationship with you into a subscription service. I shot back. 1,200 a month. Automatically. For 2 years. Ethan finally looked up, annoyed. God, you're dramatic, he muttered. Dana spun toward him immediately, protective. Don't say that, honey. Then she looked back at me with cold eyes. If you really cared about this family, she said, you wouldn't hesitate. That sentence cracked something in me. Because I realized what she truly believed. My success wasn't mine. It was theirs to claim. I set my mug down carefully. I'll think about it, I said. Dana relaxed instantly, satisfied like she'd won again. But when I drove home that night, my hands were shaking. And for the first time, a thought entered my mind, quiet but deadly. What would happen if I stopped? 6 months after my promotion, Dana invited me to Sunday dinner with a tone that felt too sweet. Rachel, she said on the phone, we're making your favorite. You've been working so hard. You deserve a nice family night. That should have been my first warning. Dana never said you deserve anything unless she planned to collect interest. When I arrived, the smell hit me before the door even opened. Roasted chicken, buttered rolls, mashed potatoes, cinnamon. The house felt like Thanksgiving. And Dana was dressed like it, too. Soft sweater, earrings, hair perfect. She smiled at me like we were close. There she is, she chirped. My hardworking girl. My stomach tightened. I stepped inside. Dad looked tired. His shoulders were tense like he'd been carrying something heavy. Ethan's voice echoed from the basement, laughing into his gaming headset. Dana shot me a bright smile. Ethan will come up soon. He did. Eventually. He wandered into the kitchen in sweatpants, yawned, and opened the fridge like he owned the place, like it wasn't my money keeping that fridge full. Hey, he said, not looking at me. Dana kissed his cheek. Then she turned back to me and said, like I was a guest. Seat. Relax. You never relax. Dinner was elaborate. Too elaborate. Dana kept piling food onto my plate like guilt had calories. You're too skinny, she said loudly. You work too much. You never do anything fun. I forced a smile. Are you fine? Dad asked about my job. I mentioned a project I was leading. Dana nodded like she understood she didn't. Ethan didn't even try to pretend to listen. He just scrolled and ate. After dinner, Dana brought out coffee and a bakery cake. Actual cake. The kind I hadn't bought myself in months. I took one bite and almost sighed. It tasted like freedom. Then Dad cleared his throat. That sound. That damn sound. Rachel, he began carefully. Your stepmom and we've been talking.
He said straight to.
About what?
Dana's smile softened, overly gentle.
We're worried about you, she said. I blinked. Me? Yes, she insisted. You're 32. You're still alone in that apartment. No husband, no kids, just work. You don't live, Rachel.
Is zette her.
I live fine. Dana shook her head, dramatic. No, you survive. And it's because you're selfish.
Selfish.
I laughed, quietly confused. I'm sorry, what? Dad sighed, like I was exhausting him. You never visit unless we ask, Dana continued, voice rising. You don't help around the house like Ethan does. Your father needed help moving furniture last month, and you weren't there. My face heated instantly. I was at a required work conference, I snapped. 3 states away. I told you that. Dana waved her hand like it was irrelevant. It's always work, she said. Always excuses. I set my mug down harder than I meant to. I've been sending you money every month, I said slowly. A lot of money. Dad cut in quickly. And we appreciate it. But money isn't everything. Dana finished, eyes sharp. That's exactly your problem. You think writing checks makes you a good daughter. I felt my pulse pound in my throat. I'm keeping you from losing your house, I whispered. Dana leaned forward. And yet, she said sweetly, you still disappoint us. My breath caught. Then she tilted her head toward Ethan, who was sprawled on the couch like a king. Look at him, Rachel, she said. He understands what family means. And in that moment, I realized the truth. This wasn't a dinner. This was an intervention. And I was the target. Dana's smile didn't move when she said it. It wasn't warm. It wasn't motherly. It was the kind of smile someone wears when they believe they've already won. Rachel, she said gently, like she was explaining something to a child, we're trying to help you. You don't seem happy.
I ser det her.
I'm not happy because I'm paying your mortgage. Dad flinched at the word mortgage like it was profanity. Dana's eyes flashed.
See?
That right there. Always money. Always scorekeeping. I laughed, sharp, exhausted. Because the score is in my bank account. Ethan shifted on the couch, irritated. Can you not do this right now? He muttered. You're making it weird. Dana immediately softened toward him. It's okay, honey. Then she turned back to me cold again. Your father and I have been talking, she said. And we think you're losing your way. My way. I repeated. My hands were trembling now, but my voice stayed calm. I have a career. I pay my bills. I haven't asked you for a single thing. Dana leaned in.
Exactly.
That's your problem. You're too independent. My eyebrows shot up. That's a problem? It's a problem because you don't need anyone, she said. You don't rely on family. You don't prioritize us. I swallowed hard, anger creeping up my throat like acid. I prioritize you every month, I snapped.
$1,200.
Every single month.
Dad groaned.
Rachel. No. I cut him off. Let's talk about it. Let's finally talk about it like adults.
Dana's nostrils flared.
You're being disrespectful. Disrespectful. I repeated, almost laughing. Dana, I'm keeping the bank from foreclosing on this house. Do you even understand what that means? She slammed her mug down. We never asked you to do that, she shouted. The lie was so blatant I froze. Dad didn't correct her. That hurt more than her yelling. My voice dropped, quiet and deadly. You sat me at that kitchen table and slid mortgage papers toward me like a death sentence. Dana's eyes went wide, then narrowed. That was different, she said quickly. That was temporary. Temporary, I repeated. It's been 3 years. Ethan scoffed. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with money, you'd have a life. I turned to him slowly. What did you just say? He shrugged, finally looking at me like he was bored. You heard me. You're always acting like you're better than us. My blood boiled. I'm not better than you, I said. I'm just the only one acting like an adult. Dana shot up from her chair. Don't you dare talk about him like that. I stood too. Then don't you dare talk to me like I'm your employee. I snapped back. Dad finally spoke, voice tense. Rachel, sit down. I looked at him, stunned. Why would I sit down? Dana's eyes glittered with something ugly. Because you need to listen, she said. You need to hear the truth. I felt my heart hammering. What truth? I asked, voice shaking now. Dana pointed toward Ethan like he was proof. The truth is, she said, we want you to be more like your brother. The words landed like a slap.
I ser det her.
More like Ethan? Yes, Dana insisted. Ethan understands family. He's here. He helps. He doesn't make everything about money and career. I laughed. I couldn't stop it. It came out broken. He lives in your basement, I said. He doesn't pay bills. He doesn't contribute. He's loyal.
Dana screamed.
He's present. He's the son who doesn't abandon us. I felt something inside my chest crack. Dad's face turned red, but he still didn't defend me. Dana's voice lowered suddenly, dangerous calm. And you, she whispered. You're a failure. Silence. Even Ethan stopped moving. Dana stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. Your brother would never disappoint us like this, she said coldly. Never. The room spun. But instead of breaking me, something inside me went perfectly still. Crystal clear. I looked at Dana, then at Dad, then at Ethan, and a strange calm washed over me as I whispered, "Okay." Dana's words hung in the air like smoke. "You're a failure." For a second, I didn't even breathe. Because I was waiting for Dad to say something. Waiting for him to step in like he used to when I was 16 and some kid at school made fun of me. Waiting for him to be my father. But Dad just sat there, jaw tight, eyes down like silence was easier than choosing me. And Ethan? Ethan leaned back into the couch cushions, arms crossed, looking smug. Like he'd just won some invisible competition that only existed inside Dana's head. Dana stared at me, eyes sharp and satisfied, like she expected tears. Like she expected guilt. Like she expected me to collapse into apology. Instead, I felt cold clarity. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just the kind of calm you get when you finally understand the truth. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said.
Dana blinked.
Dad looked up. Ethan snorted like I was finally coming to my senses. Dana's voice softened immediately, fake tenderness sliding over her cruelty like a mask. "That's all we've been trying to say," she murmured. "We want you to do better." I took one step back and grabbed my purse from the chair.
Dana frowned.
"Where are you going?" I smiled, small, polite. "If I'm a failure," I said softly, "then I need to stop failing." Her lips curved in satisfaction. "Yes," she said, triumphant. "Exactly." I pulled out my phone. The second my screen lit up, Dana's expression changed. "What are you doing?" Dad asked, suddenly alert. I didn't answer. My fingers moved with practiced precision, because finance makes you quick with numbers and pain makes you quick with decisions. Banking app, transfers, recurring payments. And there it was. Mortgage help, $1,200 monthly. Dana stepped forward. "Rachel." I tapped the transfer. A warning popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" My thumb hovered for half a second. 3 years flashed in my mind like a montage. My cheap apartment, my skipped vacations, my dwindling savings, my stomach sinking every first of the month. Dana's voice sharpened. "Rachel, stop." Dad stood up, so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Wait, Rachel, please, let's talk about this." I looked at my father, and for the first time, I didn't see a helpless man. I saw a man who chose silence because it benefited him. I hit confirm.
Done.
The transfer vanished.
Just like that.
Dana's face drained of color. Dad stared at my phone like I just pulled a gun. "What did you do?" he whispered. I slid the phone back into my purse and zipped it slowly, calm, deliberate. "I stopped," I said. Dana's mouth opened, but the words came out in a shriek. "You can't just cut us off." I tilted my head. "Cut you off." Then I repeated her words back to her, sweet as poison. "You said I was a failure," I reminded her. "You said Ethan would never disappoint you like this." I turned my eyes toward Ethan. He finally sat up. "What the hell?" he began. I held up a hand. "No," I said. "This is your moment." Ethan blinked. Dana's voice cracked, panicked now. "Rachel, this was just a conversation. We were trying to push you to be better." I laughed quietly. "Better? Dana, you just called me a failure." Dad stepped toward me, hands up, pleading. "Honey, please, don't do this. The mortgage." "Oh," I said, cutting him off. "The mortgage suddenly matters?" His face fell. Because yes, that's what it was always about. Dana's eyes went wet instantly, like she could summon tears on command. "I didn't mean it," she sobbed. "I was upset." "You meant it," I said calmly. "You've always meant it." She shook her head wildly. No, you're twisting it." "I'm not twisting anything," I said. "I'm finally understanding it." I put on my coat slowly. Dana lunged forward. "Rachel, don't you walk out on this family." I stopped at the door and turned back. "Family?" I repeated. Then I looked at Ethan again. "Your golden boy is right here," I said. "Let him be the hero." Ethan scoffed, but his eyes flickered with fear. "I don't have that kind of money," he muttered. I smiled. "I know," I said. That smile hit him harder than yelling ever could, because it meant the safety net was gone. Dana shrieked again, voice climbing into hysteria. "You're doing this to punish us. You're cruel. You're selfish." I walked closer, so close she had to look up at me. "Selfish is calling someone a failure while living off their paycheck," I whispered.
Dana froze.
Dad's voice broke. "Rachel, we raised you. And I paid you back," I said quietly. "With interest." Then I opened the door. Dad grabbed my wrist. "Please," he begged. I looked down at his hand on me. His grip was shaking. For a moment, my heart almost softened. Then I remembered. He sat there and let her call me a failure. I gently removed his hand. "No," I said. And I walked out. I drove home with my heart pounding, hands tight on the steering wheel. My phone started ringing before I even reached the end of the street.
Anna. Dad. Dana again.
Then Aunt Linda. Then a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. I ignored them all. That night, I slept like a woman who'd finally stopped drowning. The next morning, the guilt-tripping text started. You're immature. You're dramatic. Family doesn't abandon family. How could you do this to your father? I stared at the messages and finally replied to exactly one. It was from Dana. We need to talk like adults. I typed back. The mortgage payment is due on the 15th. You've got 2 weeks. Ethan won't disappoint you, remember? Then I turned off my phone and went to work. And for the first time in years, I felt rich. Not because I had more money, but because I had something I'd never had before. Control. For the first few weeks after I cut them off, I felt light. Not happy exactly, because it still hurt, but light, like someone had finally untied a rope that had been strangling my ribs for years. And then the reality hit them. Not emotionally, financially, because guilt doesn't pay a mortgage. The bank doesn't care about family. The bank cares about one thing, money. Around month 3, Aunt Linda called again, voice trembling with fake urgency. Rachel, your father is struggling. He might lose the house. I didn't even flinch. There's an adult living in that house, I said coldly. A grown man with 2 working legs. His name is Ethan. She gasped like I'd cursed. How can you be so heartless? I laughed once. I'm not heartless. I'm just not paying anymore. Then I hung up. 6 months passed. I paid off my car. I restarted my emergency fund. I maxed out my retirement contributions for the first time in years. And something unexpected happened too. I started dating again. Not because I suddenly had time, but because I wasn't spending my nights drowning in stress, wondering if a late fee would be my fault. I was at a Thanksgiving dinner with friends when I met Caleb, quiet smile, kind eyes. He asked me what I did for a living, and when I said finance, he joked. So, you're the one who keeps the world from collapsing. I laughed so hard my eyes watered. Because I'd been doing that for my family, and nobody ever called it strength. Then, about 10 months after the blow-up, Ethan called. I almost didn't answer, but his voice was different. Not smug, not lazy, just tired. Rachel, he said quietly, can you come to the house? Please. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. So I went. The house looked rough, paint peeling, lawn untrimmed, porch light cracked. Like stress had become visible. Ethan opened the door, and I barely recognized him. He was thinner, older, like life had finally introduced itself. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Dana once slid mortgage papers toward me like a leash. Ethan stared at his hands. They're 3 months behind, he said. The bank started foreclosure proceedings. I didn't speak. He swallowed hard. I know what you're thinking, he continued. That they did it to themselves. I finally met his eyes. And you're right, he whispered. That hit me. Because nobody in that house ever admitted I was right. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I got a second job, he said. I'm working full-time now plus weekends at a restaurant. I'm paying them $800 a month. My chest tightened. Not from sympathy. From shock. So he finally grew up the moment my money stopped covering his comfort. Then he looked at me and said words that cracked something open. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. For being a leech. For letting her call you a failure. I sat there frozen. That apology didn't erase the past, but it did something important. It acknowledged the truth. A week later, I called a family meeting. When Dana opened the door and saw me, her face tightened like she expected punishment. I sat in the living room and said it once. I'm not giving you money. Dana's mouth opened. I held up a finger. But I will help you build a plan if you admit what you did. Silence. Then Dad whispered, we took you for granted. Dana started crying. Not the dramatic kind. The ashamed kind. She looked at me and said, voice shaking, I called you a failure when you were carrying us. I meant to hurt you. I did. I'm sorry. And that was the moment I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I needed boundaries. So I helped them with budgets, options, and reality, not with checks. Because the real lesson wasn't about money. It was this. Love shouldn't cost you your future. And family shouldn't only value you when your wallet is open. I didn't save them. I saved myself. And for the first time in my life, I finally understood what success really looks like.